Welcome to Somerset Overtime, a show about sports in Somerset. Today we are going to be talking about a brand new sport at Somerset Berkeley Regional High School, which is lacrosse. They just finished their first season in the spring, and we're here with head coach Emily Travis and assistant coach Julie Rose Wells. First of all, what was it like starting a whole new program at the high school?
Well, it was a little overwhelming to start. We didn't really know, we knew everything we had to cover going into the season in that first day of tryouts, but it's kind of like, where are we going to start? Are we going to start with like the basics, like basic, or are we going to see if they can try and pick up some harder skills faster and stuff like that? We were lucky we had a lot of athletes. We had pointed out a couple of times that conditioning wasn't a majority of what we needed to cover, which was good. So I think it was just like, where do we start and how do we get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I think that we want to build a competitive program as quickly as we can in the conference, but we knew that that we needed to gain traction and interest because it's not a sport that these girls have done when they were little, like soccer and basketball. They've years and years invested into those sports, whereas lacrosse, like many of them played other sports, and they just kind of did it because they weren't maybe in love with the spring sport that they were currently doing, or they just wanted to try something new. So we knew that we needed to gain interest and sort of like build some roots and get them sort of passionate about it, because we all know, like at the high school level, a lot of the improvement comes outside of the season and their own investment in it. So we sort of like approach the season like, hey, we want to be great if we could win a game or two, but more than that, we just really want you to learn the skill, have fun, and hopefully come back for more. And so, I think we did a good job of starting the season in that way.
You had a lot of good athletes from some of the other sports teams at the high school,
Mm-hmm.
but most of them had never played lacrosse, right? So what did you have to teach them in order to be able to be competitive on the field?
Big thing to start off with, we had to make sure they all had equipment. So like kind of going out, we didn't want them to spend a ton of money on equipment, hypothetically, if they didn't fall in love with the sport and stuff like that and have thrown all this money at it, which a lot of them went to secondhand use places and stuff like that. And even from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, they've decided like next year, they're like, oh, I'm going to invest in, they saw the other teams like, I need better equipment to be better. To a certain degree, it doesn't just make that. So like making sure they all have the equipment they need to participate. And then it was catch and throw. If you can't catch and you can't throw, then we can't do anything. So that was the first couple of weeks, almost every day.
Yeah.
Through the whole season we did it, but.
Yeah, catch, throw, grounders. And then there's a lot of rules.
Yes.
So the one helpful part was that we had a good number of field hockey girls that came out. And they're very different sports, but they do overlap in some ways. Mm-hmm. And I think like learning a lot of rules is like, there's a lot of rules in field hockey, there's a lot of rules in lacrosse. It's a very intellectual sport.
Most people don't know the rules of field hockey. It's very hard to even figure out.
Yeah, and lacrosse, like men's and women's lacrosse are so different. There's a lot more rules in women's lacrosse, but it does make it a much more of like an intellectual team sport, and which is very, very cool. So along with, us having to learn the rules, because the rules have been ever evolving really since she got out of college. They have changed immensely in the past, 15 years.
That gave us a little bit of a help to the beginning of the season this year, because there were probably 10 new rules in general for the state of Mass. And everyone in our conference were also learning those particular rules. So we all kind of were on that level playing field to start the first couple of weeks with those rules at least. But we still had a whole booklet of other rules we had to, but like those 10 ones that they were really implementing this season was going to be for everyone, which was good. Like,
well, maybe it helped your team that they just had to learn these new rules.
Those
so
ones
they
were
use those old rules, so they didn't have to adjust.
We didn't have to change their mindset, which I hope going forward we keep those rules that they did change, and I think that'll help a lot because now they up at least those core rules they knew, but we still had to go over some basic ones that they've had for years and are harder to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the field hockey players. I mean, I know Jen Crook makes those kids run.
Yep.
So that must have helped.
And we
a
were
little
very thankful
having
for that.
kids
We
like
were very thankful for that.
Because we didn't have a lot of time to do conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, when, I used to coach soccer at the high school many years ago, and like the first several weeks of soccer were conditioning, really, and tactical stuff. But the skill they had, like they were able to pass and shoot and, the basics. So we basically were like, listen, like some of this conditioning is going to come on to you guys that you're going to have to do outside of our practice time, because we're going to have to pick and choose. And right now, basics lacrosse skill is what's priority for you to be successful, but also for you to be safe. So they, we would incorporate running, of course, but it was nice because those field hockey girls really were in already great shape, just because they worked so hard with Jen. And so we were very grateful for that.
That Addie Finlaw just turned out to be a pretty good player.
Phenomenal
Pretty good,
athlete.
pretty good, yeah.
Phenomenal athlete.
Yeah.
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 She, did you see that she just got named for a captain for field hockey?
No, I didn't see that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
She's only gonna be a junior. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, she's an incredible athlete, and
overall, yeah.
she makes it look it's like it's so easy, which is, I think, when some of those greatest athletes, it's not. She works so hard, but you watch her and you're just, mesmerized by her athleticism. We were very grateful that she decided to play lacrosse.
Well, it looks like, I mean, I never played, but it looks like through the way you play the game that you probably need pretty good hand-eye coordination with those passes and catches. And
I think a little more than they initially thought, some of them.
Yeah.
it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, like we talked about the difference between men's and women's, and women's have that much shallower pocket, even compared to like a softball glove, let's say. Like it has that big pocket to grab the ball. It's a lot more skill catching with a woman's lacrosse stick and almost giving a little bit and being able to keep it in that small pocket that they have. And I think some of them found it a lot more difficult than others, kind of figuring out how to catch it gently and keep it in there. Yeah.
So like anything else, just takes practice.
As many reps as possible every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you had a good turnout for a first year for the sport this year. Why do you think it was so popular with the kids today?
I think it's something that the kids in Somerset have been talking about doing for a while. I know, like I had mentioned before, when I started coaching in town 15, 19 years ago, they did try to get it going, and they got a lacrosse club, and I don't really know why it never really took off. I don't know if there wasn't a lot of support or whatever, but just kind of died out. And then in the past 3 or 4 years, it's kind of the kids really drove this. I mean, the men's lacrosse coach Phil, he was a big proponent of the sport when he came into the to the school system, because he had played. But these kids really, it was their idea and it was their passion that got this off the ground, and then it got the support from the athletic director, Joe Francis, and it got the support from the superintendent, Mr. Schoonover, and and then it started building traction. And I think that it's there. Spring is a spot where, like, you have softball, and this is a lot of really talented softball players in this town, but the teams are smaller. Like, you can only field so many kids, and and then track, you have track, and if you're a really great track athlete, like, you're very focused on it. But there's a lot of kids who do track just to stay in shape, and tennis, same thing. Like, you only have a small group of kids that really can be varsity players, because it's like a smaller sport. So I just think there was like a spot for lacrosse. I just think it was like something that fit in perfectly, and we were just really lucky that it ended up being 34 girls in the program, and we were fortunate enough to have a JV and varsity, and hopefully it just grows from there. So.
Phil came from Long Island, where he said, which was like a hotbed for lacrosse. So
Yeah.
he knew a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think for some reason we're just like a little bit behind when it comes to lacrosse because when I grew up in Connecticut, it was very big in southeastern Connecticut, very big in Long Island. It's even in Rhode Island. There's been a lot of lacrosse programs that have been around for a long time. I live in Dartmouth. Their lacrosse program has been very competitive for a long time. So, I just think that for whatever reason, we just couldn't get it going, and now we have. And I think that we're starting to see a lot of kids be like, oh, like, yeah, this is awesome. This, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully it grows from there.
Yeah.
Where I grew up in East Bridgewater High School, and I grew up in the '80s, so this is a long time ago. We didn't have lacrosse, but I went to college at UMass Amherst, and the men's lacrosse team was actually a huge spectator sport there, and we had one of the better teams in the country. That was another reason.
That helps.
Yeah.
Why? But that I didn't know anything about it until I got up there. So, I mean, so you want to build this up now. This was your first season. How long do you think it's going to take you to build it into really like a...
I think even from this year to next year, there's going to be a big jump. We're going to go, just to start, we're doubling our games. We had 10 this season. It was nice. We had a couple of scrimmages before then and stuff like that, but we're going to go from 10 to hopefully 18 to 20 next year. And I think just having those more games, you can teach them only so much in practice, and they're going to go so hard against each other kind of thing in scrimmages and stuff, but that mental state of being in a competitive game and wanting to beat this other team and stuff, that's why I feel like they learn the most. They ask the most questions because the different scenarios, they see other teams do something and they want to know about it, and Julie and I are still kind of on that learning curve with them. We're trying to stay one step ahead and teach them as we learn kind of thing. But I think that's going to be a huge jump just from hopefully most of our starters will return for varsity. We'll have a lot of JV potential coming up. So having that 1 year under their belts and then doubling the amount of games is just gonna, I think, is gonna be huge.
Yeah, we had a lot of sophomores in the squad, and
Addie Finlaw.
among others. And so as long as they come back, which I felt really great about the end of the season. The vibe on the team was really good. It was really positive. They were really proud of their growth, and they all seemed like they were having a lot of fun. So I feel like if we get back everybody who played last year, minus the obvious seniors who graduated, plus the word of mouth, like, hey, this was really fun, and you don't have to know. It's not intimidating when you're brand new to a sport and so is everybody else, right? Like when you want to try something new, you go to high school and you're like, oh, I never played basketball, and I kind of want to play basketball, and I coach basketball in town, and we're happy to have those new kids, but that's intimidating because they're walking into a team environment where some of these kids are playing year round. They've been playing since they were 6 or 7 years old. In lacrosse right now, because it's new, it's a great time to join because you will catch up, very quickly.
Yeah, you can't really walk onto a high school basketball team never having played before.
It's tough, especially at the varsity level. I mean, we pride ourselves, Emily and I, on trying to
three or four.
Yeah, teach these kids at the freshman level or the JV level as much as we possibly can. And athletes are athletes, so like you'll see that with lacrosse, right? Like Addie didn't play lacrosse, and she ended up being phenomenal at it. But yeah, lacrosse, I think, because it's new in town, it's still like in the next 2 or 3 years, will still be a great spot for kids who have never played to join, and hopefully we can start building lacrosse in Somerset at the younger ages, as we go. I'm hoping we can, this trickle down effect and start to get it into the youth leagues and things like that. And
phys ed classes at South Elementary.
I started this year, so.
Yeah.
Hey, how about the recreation department, some type of lacrosse camp?
We're thinking about looking into that. I got a lot of information from some of the coaches that we played against in the conference this year about camps in the area. So I sent that out to some of the girls, and a few got back to me that they were planning on going this summer, and they've played one season and they want to go do a camp now and stuff, and that's huge. And I think if we can get them and then they get their siblings, they get their younger friends and stuff. Kind of, that's going to be a huge thing. I mean,
Yeah, there are some opportunities in the winter at Teamworks,
Yeah.
at Four Kicks in Taunton. So hopefully we can be involved in some of that. And then, I want to this fall reach out to the recreation department and see like their thoughts on, and what it would take to bring, I have 2 little kids at home. So we need more like, adult support to really get that, youth piece off the ground. But I think that, I'll tell you, like when I did it with my 4th and 5th graders this year at South Elementary, really like some of these boys and girls really thought it was amazing and went home and told their parents they wanted to get lacrosse sticks. And, I had parents reach out to me to say like, hey, my child's like really interested in this. Is there opportunities? And so I told them, in Dighton there's some opportunities, but we got to get it here because I think it will grow very quickly.
and like 10 years ago for volleyball, we didn't have anything lower than JV team at the high school. We've added a freshman team. Now there's a middle school team, which is huge, and I can see the difference as it's coming through now. But like 10 years ago when I first started the varsity job at Somerset, like we did have those athletes who come in, oh, I played gym class volleyball. And like it's great that if we can get lacrosse and gym and stuff, but it's going to be getting feeder programs or getting the towns to run stuff or whatever. That's where they're really going to get the ones who want to be there.
Yeah.
For extra stuff.
Yeah, on Facebook I saw, I don't know if it's one of your volleyball players playing out in a tournament in Iowa this past week.
Yes, middle school player. She'll be a freshman this year.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I thought there was a league in Rhode Island too. A long time ago somebody asked me to do a story because there were Somerset kids and now this was a while ago. So there are
Possibly we
there
had,
are opportunities for them around.
Yeah,
town,
we had
too.
2 or 3 girls, maybe 4, who had played like elementary age in like the Dighton area, and like they had played, and then it wasn't big in Somerset. So when they started going and playing sports in middle school in Somerset and stuff, they stopped playing lacrosse other places. So they hadn't touched a stick in years.
And there are some large youth all the way through. I don't know what they call them as lacrosse, but as you would think of like in basketball, like AAU type of travel teams in Rhode Island, because one of my coworkers' sons who graduated from the high school from Somerset 2 years ago now, they couldn't get it off the ground in Somerset, so he went and played in this league in Rhode Island. It was very successful.
Yeah, I know it's big. It seems like it's big with hockey players, and I know it's a very popular sport in Canada where. I mean, there's lots of hockey players there too.
Yeah, we had a couple hockey players play, and they were very successful. And I think, like tactically, they kind of had kind of like the same sort of idea. And they got that hand-eye coordination as well.
It's a small puck.
You know, and I think like in men's hockey where you can check and things like that, and in women's, so in men's lacrosse is like that carryover, whereas in women's it's physical, but it's not physical in the same way. But you can use your speed and your skill as you would as a hockey player. And so I'm hoping that those couple girls that we had sort of like let the other hockey players know, like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to, continue to work on your skill.
Emily, you played 1 year in college.
I played 1 year in college. Yep. My senior year. I had some friends from the basketball team in volleyball who said, hey, we have a new coach for the school this year. We're low on numbers. You should come play. And I ended up playing, and it was awesome. It was the most fun. There was no pressure. There were a few of us who had never played before. We were just athletes, and they said, we'll teach you the rules and stuff like that. Just come in and put the work in. And we would do extra sessions and stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun, and I had a great group to learn with. Yeah.
Now, there's a difference between the girls and the boys' games. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
So like Julie said, mental is a huge thing, and we think it's a lot more of a mental game because there is a lot more rules for protection against physical contact, bodying up too much. I mean, the girls only wear goggles, similar to field hockey. We don't have the full gear and stuff like that. They can wear gloves to protect their hands, but not necessarily, so you can get hit with a stick and stuff like that. So a lot of it's more you have to be strategic on offense. You have to be strategic on defense and stuff like that. And
There's restrictions on where they can go on the
Yep.
field.
Yep.
You have midfielders who can go the entirety of the field, whereas you have defensive players who can only go up to a certain point, and offensive attack players that can only go back to a certain point. So yeah, this has been a learning curve for all of us. I was especially very grateful that Ann Mollicone, who's a phys ed teacher at the high school and played lacrosse at Bridgewater, was willing to come and work with us and work with the girls. And like she said, we're trying to stay one step ahead of them as a coach with our knowledge. But I've never played lacrosse. I just was asked to sort of help build this program, and it's been great, and I loved it, and I want to continue to do it. So we've been reaching out to different resources. The curriculum director in town, her daughter is a very successful lacrosse player. She's actually playing in Portugal right now. I think for the U20 Portuguese women's lacrosse team, and so they were super, super helpful, answering questions and the willingness to reach out and help us. Other coaches that we played against, everybody's been building programs around here. Referees,
explaining rules and stuff like that, especially the new rules this year. That was great. Like I said, both teams are learning some of these new ones, and the referees would take a minute to hey, this is why I called it or something, and everyone's able to learn from that, which is great.
Yeah, and we just watched a ton of lacrosse,
ton of videos, ton of
read
games,
a lot, but the men's and women's game is definitely, there's overlap, but it's definitely very different.
Is lacrosse an Olympic sport? Because that's coming up this week.
I think it is an Olympics. It's one of those sports I think that's come in and out of the Olympics, but I believe it is in the Olympics.
Kind of like baseball.
Yeah.
Some of those sports, I don't know why they're an Olympic sport. Okay. Well, it sounds like you had a very successful first season.
I don't think you could have. We had a couple of close games. We had a win, which was unexpected. We worked towards that, and that's what we were hoping. But the girls were still surprised when it did happen. Their hard work did pay off, which was great. It kind of showed them. I think we kind of needed that.
We scored a goal in every single game.
Every game, yep. We didn't.
At least one goal in every single game.
Which was huge.
It can get frustrating in sports if you get blown out every game.
Yeah, and keeping that morale up sometimes, and you guys are putting the work in, it's going to pay off. And I think that win, even if it was just one, was huge for them to see hey, we can keep up with these teams who have been playing years longer than we have and stuff like that. And we're playing catch up, but if we put the work in they were, it's going to pay off.
Yeah, I got to give credit to the few seniors that we had because they came out playing a sport that they knew was going to be one and done. They've never played it, but they wanted to try it, and they knew that they were, after this, they were going to go off to school and probably not play lacrosse again. And their dedication and hard work and
leadership.
Leadership just really was essential to getting this program off the ground, because we can lead, but the girls listen to each other, and those couple seniors that we had were phenomenal leaders, and we've got some more coming up. So,
what is the strategy as far as on the field goes? As far as
what is strategy? It's a great question because we're constantly trying to figure out. Strategy.
Are you setting up plays like you do in basketball?
Well, you should be setting up plays.
Yep.
We hadn't really been able to get to the point where on attack where we were able to successfully run a lot of sort of motion offense types of plays. Set plays. That's sort of what we need to move into in this next season.
Yep.
But we were able to kind of get some structure on attack. We were able to sort of,
if you create space, you can make space for someone else. So just trying to teach the strategy, okay, we're not ready to set up a actual offense, but if we get to these particular spots and you guys communicate, there's still a lot of leeway to attack the net or fill in a different spot and stuff like that. So it's kind of the biggest thing, and we love to crowd the net, was to create the space because defense couldn't be inside a certain area without our offense being in there. So if we're not in there, they're not. So it was a lot of mental strategy.
Yeah, and our defensive strategy like grew phenomenally because when we first went out there, and this is just new coaching, we were just sort of figuring it out, right? So we were sort of playing like a man-to-man style defense, if you will, which you can in lacrosse, and we were able to evolve into like a zone style defense where the communication got better and everything just really kind of came into, you know, sync a little bit towards the end. So I think like that's where us as coaches and as the team, now that we have girls who sort of like have a basic understanding, that's where we grow next year as a team. And
have those basics already.
Yeah, we implement
more complicated offense.
a little bit more offenses and defenses and strategy to move the ball up and down the field and things like that.
And we definitely talked about how soccer, you coaching soccer and us coaching basketball and stuff together definitely helped. There's a lot of similarities. A lot of overlap. We tried to tie in some field hockey stuff, scenarios, hockey even, kind of like the spacing and stuff like that is huge, and it's always in, especially I feel like that age group, spatial awareness isn't huge. So trying to bring aware, like watching a lot of videos, and so they understanding like where they should be and why is huge for them to learn, kind of thing. It's not just, hey, coach told you to stand here, coach told you to do this, just do it. It's if they understand the reasoning of the strategy and how we're trying to run it together, I feel like they learn a lot more than that. Like they want to know why. They always want to know why. So I think that was huge, and the overlap is definitely helpful for a lot of them, tying in the different sports. Yeah.
So you were competitive this year. You won a game. What would be your goal for next season? What would you?
We talked about at least doubling that, double the games, double the wins.
Yeah.
We did try and pick up a few teams that we are in the early stages of them too, or have smaller programs so that we can hopefully be more successful in that competitiveness, and not, you're always going to have one or two games, especially when we're playing catch up like Old Rochester and stuff, that we're going to lose by 15. Okay, let's cut that down to half. Let's try and, let them only score 10 this game instead of 15 or something like that. But I do think us playing the more games and more teams that we're more evenly matched with is going to be a good turnout for us in the long run.
Yeah, I think a realistic goal would be to try to win, maybe 5 or more games, and to score more goals.
Yeah.
That would be huge. In lacrosse, and this is the part of like other sports where it's a little shocking, but in lacrosse, like it's not unreasonable to have a score of like 17-14, right? And like you're letting 14 goals in, which is like shocking to, Somerset field hockey, let's say, because they're very, very, very good and don't let that many goals in. But also a game like soccer where it's always could be,
1-0.
Yeah, 1-0 or 2-1 or whatever. So we were able to score, we kind of averaged probably 8 goals a game, whatever. So I would think that success would look like, more wins, and if we could average a higher amount of goals a game, maybe 12 to 15 goals a game.
And we had talked to you towards the end of the season about how just the amount of shots on goal doubled, which was huge for us. And we did find more success with, like, if we actually have to have the goalie make the save and we're not just giving the ball up offensively, those more shots the percentage is going to even out eventually.
Yeah,
the more shots on goal, the more potential to score.
Yeah, so the statistics will show success in the program, I think. So, we'll see what happens, but we're excited about it.
Is it like other sports too, where they say defense wins championships, or, is that a...
Well, I don't really know, but I did hear that Ann Malacone told me grounders win championships.
Yes.
Oh.
So being able to pick up balls on the ground win championships. So
like the 50-50 balls.
Yes. Anything on the ground is fair game, and whoever can scoop it faster gets it, and that's an offensive threat right there. Kind of.
Yeah, and it was a big thing was we played on the turf all the time.
Spoiled with the turf.
We were spoiled with the turf, which is easier to scoop a ground ball because it moves quicker. Yeah. But half of our games, if not more, were on grass, and that was a huge difference.
High grass, divots, anything like that.
So hopefully this season, being able to mix up our playing area, we're hoping that we'll be able to practice not only on the turf, but also on the fields in front of the high school.
Mhm.
So that way they get some more experience with the ball moving on different surfaces. I think that will help us be more successful as well.
You must have learned a lot during the season about those kinds of things.
Yeah.
This being the first
Some of it
year.
was learned, yeah, as it happened. We're
Definitely.
like, oh, make a mental note or write that down. We need to
We
work
took
on that
notes
next
every
practice.
single game.
Every game. I had a notebook. Yep. We filled it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the time these sophomores or seniors.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, and I
we have
think
a lot of
that,
sophomores and freshmen coming back.
yeah, and they're very, very athletic kids.
And very competitive.
Very competitive kids. So I feel like we should have a group that can grow very quickly if they put the work in and we put the work in. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
And we will see you next year when
Hopefully,
you
yeah. Yeah. Play
have a
lacrosse.
lacrosse.
If anyone wants to try out for goalie, we have some openings.
We do.
That'll be our next, that's the next big goal for next year.
That's an important position.
It is
Yeah.
an important
Yeah.
position.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for tuning in to Somerset Overtime. We will see you next time with some news about Somerset sports.